All right, so someone has to say this. Stop chasing $1 million. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Huttery Boy podcast. I'm your host, Huttery Boy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today we have an interesting topic for you. Um, Essentially, I want to discuss why everything changes for you when you save 10K in your account. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, guys, as some of you may know, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. I've been searching all over Netflix to watch Dragon Ball episodes, but unfortunately, Netflix here just doesn't have them. But you know which version of Netflix does? Netflix Japan. Some of you might be wondering, how on earth am I accessing Netflix Japan, right? Well, that's where NordVPN comes in. NordVPN is one of the top VPN services out there. It allows you to mask your location and browse securely, which is perfect for protecting your privacy. Plus, NordVPN can basically change your location to anywhere in the world with just a few clicks. So it's just as easy as that. That's how I'm able to access Netflix Japan and binge all of the Dragon Ball episodes that I can fathom. It's not just about watching international shows, however. NordVPN adds an extra layer of security basically as you're browsing, so your personal information stays safe and your online activity remains private. If you want to unlock more content and protect your privacy online, head over to nordvpn.com/harariboy to get over 70% off a 2-year subscription plus 3 months free. And if you don't like it, you can cancel within 30 days and get a money back guarantee. It is worth the peace of mind and extra content you'll have access to. All right, so I mentioned stop chasing the $1 million. What I really meant was focus on your first 10K. All right, that is the first key milestone. A lot of times we set a goal very high and it's like very unachievable. Like everything takes a baby step at the end of the day. So essentially, once you make that milestone, everything starts changing from that point forward. Most people, unfortunately, never even cross this line. So some of you may be watching, could resonate with that. This video is for you. All right. So the first thing we need to take a look at here is a mental shift. You have to essentially open your mind up and start to think outside of the box a little bit. 10K isn't just money; it's essentially a mindset unlock. Like that's the barrier to unlock, your financial future in your mind. And then before that, 5 figures, definitely feels unrealistic, but it's definitely doable because once after you hit the 10K mark, 20K, 50K, all of it starts feeling very doable. So you go from I hope to essentially I know I can. So that's where I want you guys to be at the end of the day. So let's talk about why small goals, right? Why do small goals essentially work? So big goals essentially, like I said earlier, just overwhelm you, especially at the beginning. So you start to stall out. You go like, my goal is to save $100 per day, and you can't even do $2 a day. So it's like, that huge gap it really starts to build up and accumulate. Small targets essentially will build up your confidence. So even if you have to do $1 a day, definitely start there. Once you start to stack the wins and prove it to yourself, the momentum essentially builds naturally. And so that's the same way how leveling up works. You don't just jump to level 99, like as you guys know, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, so you don't go from Kaioken to Super Saiyan overnight. Like all of that over 9,000 stuff takes a lot of work.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! What, 9,000? There's no way that can be right!
Stuff takes a lot of work. So there you go. That's how you essentially get started. Now, let me elaborate on this a little bit. Like, where are you at right now, right? Whatever your salary is, I heard this from somewhere. Can't really remember who said this quote, but it made a whole lot of sense. So I believe it was a billionaire was talking about How to Get Rich. And he essentially said that the first hour must go to you. The first hour of work must go to you. So if you take the average salary, national salary of around 60K, I believe it is. Some people might be over or under that, but let's take 60K and that's around $30 an hour, right? In a 40-hour work week, approximately, right? That first $30 that you make that first hour for the day will essentially go to you. Well, now what does that mean? It can go into your 401k, your S&P 500 investment, mutual fund, or you can just stow it away and save it as, an emergency fund. This is the path forward. So I want every single day, like if you break it down like this, and we'll talk about some other factors here as well that play into it, but this is the first main step. Just shift your focus to like $30 a day. It's very doable for a lot of people. That's just an example I'm throwing out there. So the key principle is the first hour of your day. This is how a lot of I can't tell you how many stories I hear about waiters and waitresses becoming millionaire or like 401k millionaires just by saving their not touching their $2 an hour check, just living off their tips essentially. So it's definitely doable. That would be the first way to start this snowball effect. Let's now, speaking of the snowball effect, you probably might have heard Dave Ramsey talk about this a lot. I try to implement a lot of his principles here on this channel, but a lot of times it gets used for the debt, like paying off debt, and that's definitely the way to go. The debt snowball, starting from your least to greatest, is definitely a powerful method. But in the same sense, the snowball effect can also be used for saving your first 10K. All right, so this will essentially be the hardest money you ever save. After that, the money starts to work with you. All right, each next 10K will come faster than the last, and momentum will definitely outweigh motivation any day. So that being said, what does all that mean at the end of the day? Let's let's take that first 10K and let's say you're trying to build towards that, right? And you're going to start with a daily, first hour, whatever the case might be. Now imagine you hit that 10K, all right? What do you do with that 10K? Are you going to just save it, which is great for a starter emergency fund, 3 to 6 months for some people? Are you going to essentially invest it into an S&P 500? Well, let's take a look at that. Well, what does the S&P 500 typically do? Now, on average, over a 100-year span, the average has been 10%. So let's just go with that 10% figure. If you invested $10 a year, right? That's just a dollar every year, and that doesn't really do you much. But if you take 10K and you put that and let it gross, every single year for you, that's like $1,000 a year. It's increasing. So 10K is definitely like a break, like like I guess you can say a breaking point to the next level. And that's why, the following year you did it once already, you built that momentum up, that 10K now you can save into 20K, and then it'll compound further from there. So it's definitely a winning strategy to go this way. All right. So that comes to the fifth strategy here, which is the speed will essentially actually increase. So I talked about this a little bit already, but 0 to 10K is always a slow start, but the 10 to 20K will definitely fill a lot faster, and 20 to 50K will fill even more faster. So you've got the habits down, you're consistent, and you've got the money compounding, like I just mentioned. All right. So you always want to have an emergency buffer. So this ties into my previous point about the 3 to 6 months. Now, 10K is not going to be enough for 3 to 6 months for a lot of people in this economy. As long as you're out of debt and as long as, you're doing things the right way, like let's say you're a renter or something like that, and your rent isn't more than a quarter or a third of your income. Yeah, the 10K will definitely be a good buffer. But for a lot of people, or for most people, it'll be more of a peace of mind. So what do I mean by that? If an emergency happens, the car breaks down, which tends to happen, right? A lot, sometimes for some people. you're good. For that, may God forbid engine or transmission goes out, 10K can pretty much cover those larger expenses. Job hiccups, in case, there's any gap in employment or anything like that, the 10K will last you some time. And finally, the stress relief alone is definitely worth it, like I was mentioning. So just keep those in mind. That's definitely a good emergency buffer for you as well. All right. So aside from that, this kind of ties into the stress point again. The mental freedom that you accrue is, it's unmatched from your previous mindset. When you're not stressed out about money, you think clearer. First off, you make better decisions when you think clearer. Like you're not just going to jump at the first offer that comes your way, and you actually focus on growth, health, career, and business. So that's those are definitely important principles. So definitely keep that in mind. For this eighth point, I want to talk about the risks versus the reward and changes. So a lot of times the risks and rewards kind of get overlooked. We get stuck in the moment. So the same investment risks apply. So even if you throw it into the S&P 500, even though that's like a or like a mutual fund managed by, by someone else that hopefully, knows what they're doing, the risks still apply. The economy can still go south, and that money can still go the other direction. So I recommend not investing your first 10K, but probably your second 10K. You definitely want to have that emergency, depending on where you're at. All right, and but if that money was in the stock market, bigger money equals bigger returns. Again, like I was mentioning, that $1,000 a year on the low end, right? $10 investment, we already discussed will yield you nothing. But if you accrue that, on a daily basis, you can definitely make your way towards the 10K even faster. So, all right, point number nine, kill the debt first. Now, this is one of the most crucial steps because everything I said up until now kind of gets thrown out the window if you have debt. Now, not completely. Let's say, for example, you did this in reverse order and you saved 10%, sorry, $10,000. Well, first of all, if you haven't been making the minimum payments, or if you've just been making the minimum payments, all the interest has accrued and everything, piles up. I know a lot of people that go on vacations on their credit cards, they're like, I get the points and all that stuff. But when they come back, they realize they overspend and now they can't, they're 3,000 over their budget and they run out of money to pay it back. That debt lingers around and becomes like 4,000, 5,000 at the end of the year. Well, guess what? They focused on, let's say, for example, to save that $10,000. Now they can pay off that credit card at the end of the year. They have that wiggle room to do so. So the 10K definitely opens a lot of windows for you. It's a delayed gratification, but it's a real win at the end of the day. All right, so let's talk about habit frameworks. The habit framework is also a key principle. I already talked about building the momentum, things like that. It comes from habit. You have to be disciplined enough. So trigger, action, and reward. Those are the three steps there. The paycheck hits, try to automate this as much as possible. Save and invest. Like a lot of savings accounts will automatically take a portion and put it into your savings account. Keep that automation. Same thing with investments. Like we use, Robinhood, which I'm not sponsored by right now, but they have automation features, things like that, and then you start to see the real progress growing. So, same trigger, different outcome, and depending on habits that you've accrued. All right. And let's talk about this 12th point here, which is delayed gratification. So short-term comfort versus long-term freedom is something to keep in mind, obviously. Most people choose now, wealthy mindset, or the wealthy chooses later. So the more you build that discipline again to have that delayed gratification, you'll definitely win. So you're trading small wins right now for bigger wins in the future. All right. And then finally, the last point, just be real with yourself. This is kind of a reality check. 10K doesn't make you rich. It just makes you better off. It proves you're in the right path, and it's your foundation it's your foundation, not your finish line. So um, you have to have your foundation in place to build. So there you go. So yeah, those are the points I want to go over with you guys. A lot of times it's a daunting task to save your 10K, but hopefully after this video, definitely seems hopefully it seems a lot more doable and a lot more achievable. Just remember, keep it simple, stack the wins, and stay disciplined. Those are really the key points there. So most people won't do this. That's why it works. So if you want to be one of the few, definitely like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as I cover more and more topics like this, thank you guys as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Peace. So do you have a minute to connect? Let's Minnect. That's right, guys. I'm officially on Minnect now. You guys can go ahead and book me. I will be offering financial as well as career coaching based off of the Dave Ramsey principles, of course. So yeah, feel free to contact me, connect with me on Minnect, and I look forward to speaking with each and every single one of you.